That's a really wonderful cloth. I just spit again. We're gonna do this before the light goes away. Hey guys, it's Nikki. Welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I would do a little bit of a fun video. I'm a little sick still, probably look a little haggard, but that's okay. Today's video is shows you should binge watch on Netflix. So we're gonna go through a couple of my favorites. I've divided them up into a couple different categories. Just because I know not everybody likes the same kind of TV shows, I tried to stay away from like traditional like super girly shows because I know some people don't like those. But if you want, I can do a whole separate video on different categories, like girly ones or comedies or dramas. But I'm gonna give you like a healthy mix of all of the above. So we're gonna get into the video, and I'm gonna start with, what would you call this category? Kind of like action drama, I think. More like dramatic and sort of suspenseful. So you're gonna notice a theme. A lot of the shows I love to watch on Netflix, as well as my husband, ones where you're not really sure who the bad guy is, if you know what I mean. Like you're always trying to figure out the problem or who the person is or whatever before the show reveals it. First show I'm gonna mention is the one that we are currently watching. Bear in mind we have only gotten through, we're on the second season, near the end of the second season. But up to this day, I love this show, and it is The 100. Quick synopsis is basically the human race has not been able to survive on Earth. There was a nuclear, I'm assuming a nuclear war. The Earth has too much radiation and humans can't live on the Earth anymore. So basically what they do is they go up into space, and they've been living in space for I think 90 some odd years. They say 3 generations. The show takes place where it's kind of hard to explain why this happened, but basically there's a lot of prisoners on the ship who happen to be teenagers. They decide to take all of the teenage prisoners. There's 100 of them, hence the show's name, The 100. They put them on a ship and send them down to Earth to see if the Earth is survivable, because they're trying to find a way to get back to Earth because they can't stay in space forever. So basically what you have there is kind of like a dynamic of not only criminals or like alleged criminals that are supposed to sort of start a society, but they're also teenagers. So it's kind of like, it sort of reminds me of like Walking Dead meets Lord of the Flies a little bit, but it's a little more, it's dramatic, and it's psychologically interesting. It's really neat to see how they react to their freedom on Earth and how they try and pull together as a society and whether or not they survive. And so I'll leave it at that because I don't want to spoil anything else, but it's a show that I didn't think I would like, but my husband and I had, actually I think it was, who was it? Love Meg did a video and she mentioned this, and so we decided to try it, and I loved it. It was, it's so good. It's an easy show to binge. Like, we've flown through 2 seasons of it. So yeah, The 100. So the next one I have is actually the show that we were watching before The 100, and that is The OA. So I believe this is a Netflix original. From everything I've been told, it's very similar to Stranger Things. So if you liked Stranger Things, a lot of people say that if you liked Stranger Things, that you would also like The OA. Now, Corey and I personally tried to watch Stranger Things, and we didn't even get through an episode. I am willing to go back and try again because I've heard so many people say it's really good, but I just could not get into it at all. I'm not really a huge sci-fi fan, and I think just because it was a little, like, it's made to look a little dated, like I really struggled to connect with the show. Now watching the OA, I will go back and try and watch Stranger Things. This went off on a tangent, didn't it? Anyways, long story short, the OA. So basically, the show is a girl who went missing. I don't think the show actually says, but you know, you kind of get the idea that she was like either an older teen or a young adult. Her parents weren't sure if she was kidnapped or if she ran away from home or what happened. But basically she returns after 7 years of being kidnapped, and her disappearance is very unexplained. She won't tell the police where she was or who had her or any details about it, and she won't even tell her own parents about it. Her story takes place from then on, and you kind of find out what happened to her in that time and kind of why her disappearance was so strange. I will say it is a very strange show. Like, if you don't like not understanding things right off the bat, or if you struggle with any sort of like a show making sense logically, or like you really have to stretch your imagination for this show. So if you don't like that, it might not be for you. It is very weird. I know my husband hated the ending, so he really struggled with parts of the show. But I personally loved it. I thought it was really creative, and I know a lot of my friends who have seen it said the same thing. They loved it. It might be hit or miss, but it's one of those shows that you're intrigued the whole time, but you always, every time you have a question answered, you have like 5 more questions. Just keep that in mind. If you're the kind of person that doesn't like that, you won't like that show. If you love a good mystery, it's probably the show for you. It's a really good one. So the OA. So the next show I'm going to talk about is Quantico. So Quantico takes place, there's a young woman and she is trying to get into the FBI. She's accepted to the FBI school, or training, or whatever you want to call it. Basically, it's like FBI training school, and that's called Quantico. So the story takes place, and I'm not giving anything away. This is how it starts. This is in the preview, everything. And it's one of those shows that shows you what happened, and then you work back from it. So it goes all the way to the back leading up to. The premise of the show is that this FBI agent is at the scene of a terrorist attack, and she is the accused. They think she is the terrorist. They basically set up that someone at Quantico, or someone near Quantico, whoever had access to it, has set her up to be framed for this terrorist attack. Basically the whole show, you're trying to find out who it is that set her up, and was it more than one person? And a lot of the times you may think it's the people closest to her. It's one of those shows like you're so sure you know who it is, and then the next episode you're like, oh, there's no way it could be them. And then like 5 episodes later you're like, or is it them? It's one of those things where you just never know who it could be. So Quantico. And so along the lines of Quantico is the show How to Get Away with Murder. So if you've ever seen a Shonda Rhimes show, Grey's Anatomy, Scandal, it's along the lines of those shows. Actually, all of these shows I feel like Shonda could have written. How to Get Away with Murder is a show by Shonda Rhimes, and it's set in a law classroom, and this teacher, this professor, is teaching this subject called How to Get Away with Murder. It's a criminal law. They're training to be defense attorneys, and so you kind of see like them in their legal studies, but then there's practical applications. There's a murder and someone committed the murder, and basically the show is them trying to get away with it. It's kind of exactly what the title says it's gonna be, but it is so good. It reminds me so much like Quantico and How to Get Away with Murder. I find are so similar. They're kind of along the same vibes. You don't know who's the good guy, you don't know who's the bad guy. You're questioning if you're the good guy or the bad guy, you don't know. So yeah, that one's a really good one. My second category of shows are more like lighthearted, funny shows. So I don't know about you, but sometimes at the end of a day of work, I'm so tired and I don't want to have to think. I just want to be able to relax and not have to think too hard about the shows. So the first show I have is Being Erika. So I watched Being Erika a few years ago. I think there's 3 seasons. And I just thought it was such an interesting concept for a show. And it was almost like personal therapy for me, which is, you'll kind of see why when you watch it. But everyone I know, like, I almost recommend this to anyone who's going through like a midlife crisis, or especially if you just got out of college. I don't know what it is about that time, but that time is really confusing and you're not sure what you're doing with your life, and you don't feel like an adult, but you don't feel like a kid anymore, and you just are like, I don't know. And so being Erika really helped me get through that time. Basically, the premise of the show is this girl, Erika, is going through a really hard time in her life. Nothing is going right for her. Because she ends up meeting this therapist, and he's like, you know, if you need help, if you want to talk to anyone, you should probably, I'll give you my number, whatever. She ends up going to him, but it isn't like an ordinary therapist. So this is where the imagination kind of takes you for a ride. Her therapist lets her travel back in time to see different periods of her life and kind of work through her issues in those periods. So think A Christmas Carol. Is it A Christmas Carol? Yeah, A Christmas Carol. The one with like Ebenezer Scrooge, and he has ghosts of Christmas past, ghosts of Christmas present and future. It's kind of like that, but on an everyday scale. It was such a good show. Like, it was, overall, I felt really lighthearted, and I always felt kind of uplifted afterwards. Like, I don't know if her life is just such a mess that it makes me feel better about mine or what, but yeah, I ended up really liking that show. So being Erika. So the next show I'm gonna recommend is a show called Life Unexpected. And I think I mentioned this in my baby names video. The main character's name is Lux, and that was one of my names. So basically how this show takes place is that there is a girl named Lux. She is in high school. I think she's like 16, around there. And she is in the foster care system. She's kind of in a bad foster home situation, and she's, I think, if I remember correctly, she's been through quite a few foster homes. She didn't think her situation was gonna get any better. She looks up who her birth parents are and tracks them down, and basically tries to get them to sign her papers to say that she can be legally emancipated, but the court isn't going to allow her to be on her own because she's only 16 and she doesn't have a job or anywhere to stay, and she's in school. So after her birth parents meet her, they decide, you know what, we'll vouch for her, and so they share custody. Now the funny part about this show is her parents are not together. They're actually strangers, I guess. They had her when they were in high school, so they're in completely different relationships, completely different ends of the spectrum career-wise. The mom is a successful radio host, and the dad owns a bar, and so it's an interesting lifestyle difference between them, but they have to work together. It's kind of an interesting family dynamic. And it's just kind of a funny concept of getting to know your daughter after she's already grown. We really liked that show. Corey liked it. It was good. We're always really interested in shows that show a little bit more about foster care and adoption. So yeah. Life Unexpected, that's the name of the show. The next show I'm going to recommend is The Fosters. I feel like this is a more well-known show, so some of you have probably already heard of The Fosters, but basically the show takes place, there is a couple, Lena and Steph, and they are foster parents. Steph has an older son from a previous marriage, and Lena and Steph together have adopted a set of twins, and they are teenagers as well, Mariana and Jesus. So basically it's a household of 3 teenagers, and the show takes place where there is a situation where there's a girl named Kelly, and she was in foster care, but she ended up in juvie, and her foster care situation was a bad situation. So she's being released from juvie and she needs a home, and Lena basically feels bad for her at this time, and without asking her wife, she comes back and is like, ta-da, we're fostering, even though that wasn't the plan. I mean, they are foster parents, but you know, they weren't planning on adding another to the family. Callie actually has a brother that's also in the foster care system. So what I like about this show is it kind of shows the dynamics of what happens when kids are split up into different foster homes. And it also shows the difference between good foster homes and bad foster homes, because we all hear the horror stories of bad foster homes, but there are lots and lots of good foster homes as well. Now, obviously, it is a TV show, so the drama is big, but at the same time, there are a lot of issues facing foster kids and just how different it can be for them and different traumas that go on in their life. So I think the show does a really good job of getting people to open up and talk about the different issues facing both the foster care system and the adoptive system as well. And I think it's an interesting take as well because it is teenagers. Quite often I find when you're talking about foster adoption, most people are talking about younger children. But yeah, it's really good, and it definitely gets people talking about foster and adoption. So the next show I have on my list is called No Tomorrow. This is a fairly new one. I think it's only, I don't even know if it's finished a season yet, because we watch it week to week. It might be on second season. Anyways, this show is very lighthearted. Like it's much more, it's a less of a thinking show. So this girl Evie meets this guy named Xavier. He seems to have a very carefree kind of attitude, lifestyle, really lives moment to moment, seizes the day, and she is at a place in her life where she is very planned and careful and organized and just like kind of has her life planned out, and it is playing it very safe. What makes this interesting is she hangs out with him a bit and gets to know him and kind of wants to know like what is the secret? Why is he so carefree and doesn't really seem to live by any rules? And what she finds out is that he believes in an end of the world theory. So he basically thinks this asteroid is going to hit Earth, it's going to hit it, and the whole Earth is going to be wiped out. So he really believes that he only has, I think it's like 6 months. He's not really worried about the future, he's worried about the present. And so he has this bucket list, and he's trying to cross off as many things from his bucket list before the 6 months is up. And Evie kind of struggles with whether or not she believes this theory or not, but for this time in her life, she really has decided, you know what, like I need to be a little more carefree as well. So yeah, it's a very lighthearted, carefree show. That's why I like it, I think. So yeah. And the last show I have on my list is Fuller House. Obviously, if you were a Full House fan, you probably already know about the show and you probably already watched, or maybe you thought it ruined it. I grew up watching Full House, and I actually think I like Fuller House better. I think it's just such a goofy show. Like, it's so cheesy. It's almost cringy, but like, I love it. I just think it's so lighthearted. Love the whole cheesy love triangle between DJ, Matt, and Steve. Team Matt, all the way. But I think the real reason I love this show is the little boy Max. He is just the cutest little thing, and he just is so funny. You know what, I feel like that was the same dynamic as Full House. Like, everybody loved Michelle. She was cute, she was so funny, and it's kind of the same thing. So if you want a show for folding laundry or doing the dishes where you don't really want to pay attention, I would say Fuller House. So yeah, I have so many more on my list that I could honestly talk about and recommend to you to binge watch. So if you want more recommendations, let me know in the comments below, and I will definitely make another one of these. So that was it for this binge watch tag thing, whatever you want to call it. If you have any shows that you recommend for me to binge watch, because I'm sure I'll get through the couple that I have going very soon, let me know in the comments below. I love new suggestions. I feel like I just burn through shows so fast. Like and subscribe if you like this video and you want to see more. Feel free to check out some of my other videos, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks so much, guys. Bye.